Hello everyone, this is Dimitris Brunovsky, the Curious Tanguero. My goal is to bring more tango to people and more people to tango. In this episode, we dive deep into the inner world of Argentine tango, not just as a dance, but as a path to healing, awareness, and even bliss. Our guest is Aleksey Vays, author of the book Bliss, a practical guide to tango euphoria. It's a book that explores how tango can help us move better, feel deeper, and connect more authentically, both on and off the dance floor. We talk about quite a few things in this podcast. We discuss the idea of tango bliss, what it feels like, whether it's accessible to everyone, and what often stands in the way of reaching it. Aleksey also shared his own story of how tango helped him find light during the darkest moments of the war in Ukraine, and we explore everything from breath and presence to leading and following, and the subtle art of dancing through the heart. Whether you've been dancing tango for years or are just beginning to explore it, this conversation will invite you to look at the dance and yourself in a whole new way. So let's start. All right, Aleksey, I would like, before we dive deep into the book itself, I wanted to ask you, who is this book written for? And what should they expect to get out of reading it?
So Bliss is written for people who are either learning Argentine tango or who are already dancing social tango, whether you've been dancing 5 days or 5 years. What I tried to do was I tried to basically put in everything that I know. I didn't hold back. I didn't, set up a follow-up or anything like that. So it has a lot of concepts that are rudimentary and some concepts that are more advanced and that may seem intimidating for tango beginners, but I assure you that those seeds that I intend to plant will sprout in their own time.
That's beautiful. I love it. I mean, that's all we can do, right? We put seeds out there and see what comes up. That's
Exactly.
perfect.
Exactly.
Well,
And as far as sorry to answer your second part of the question, I think that what they would expect would be a set of a set of tools and a set of concepts, so both theoretical and practical, in order to improve and to be able to work on their blind spots, to be able to identify their blind spots, and to uh, improve so that you would be able to enjoy your dance to the fullest and to do it systematically, to do it every time.
it's wonderful. I think we all need this kind of guidance. I mean, I would definitely wanted to have read your book when I was starting tango. I think that would have saved me quite a few years of frustration and maybe slower growth. So I believe it's going to be a gift for the tango community. I want to ask you something. I mean, the book is focused on bliss, right?
Mhm.
I want to ask you, do you think that bliss in tango is accessible to everyone?
I really believe so. I really believe that um, everyone has this capacity and everyone can get there. I know that some people are having trouble getting there. Some people have experienced it once but then lost it and have been looking for it ever since. And I know that some people simply don't believe that it's possible. And this was a mind-blowing discovery for me that some people dismissed the entire idea to begin with. And so I guess my hope is that with this book, I want to convince people that it is in fact possible. I want um, people's accounts of their own journey and their own reaching bliss um, to prove that this is in fact. And I want to see the number of these people magnified.
And what a wonderful goal. Um, I think we all want to see the tango community grow. And it's lovely to see that there's so many people out there willing to take action, willing to create something that can help others. Um, I, I personally am a lot more attracted to people who try to find solutions than people who basically focus on the problems. And very often they just end up blaming others and expecting others to change instead of deciding and saying, look, what can I do? I can create this. So that's what I'm going to create. Um, but before we go to all this bliss and happiness and everything, you open the book by describing how tango helped you to move from devastation to bliss during the war in Ukraine. I
Mhm.
wonder if you could share the story and just tell us a little bit what did that, first standard that you mentioned in the book in Budapest teach you about tango's power?
This was 22, and it was, in fact, a very difficult time. Um, I don't even want listeners to imagine this because I don't believe that anyone should have to experience anything like that. But what was most memorable for me was that the first tanda of that wonderful marathon for me was so emotional and so transformative. The reason why it opened my eyes so much was because of the change in my state that occurred within the first hour. I went from the lowest of my lows to the highest of my highs in a matter of minutes. And that change was because if you go from feeling okay to feeling blissful, that is a change, but it's not a huge change. But for me, that first hour of that event was such a profound shift that it left a very strong imprint on me, and it showed me just how much dancing tango can help me, not only forget my problems for a while, to really get blissful, to really become, floating on that ninth cloud. And that was that change in my state was what left the most emotional imprint on me.
It's the power of tango.
That's right.
Amazing. Um, can you recall a single moment on the dance floor where you thought this is definitely what bliss feels like? I know you just said that you had this huge transition, right? I don't know, maybe that was the moment, or maybe there was another moment.
It was one of them. I also recall another one, and this one this one has to do with a little bit with musicality, but more with being attuned to the musicians, because uh, this was year something like 2018, and my friend Anya and I were in Barcelona, and we were dancing at this outdoors milonga they have on the weekend in a park. And this was we were dancing to a live orchestra, and the orchestra was terrific, and the dance floor was not too bad. The um, the whole experience was very wonderful, but what was really peculiar was that on several occasions, while dancing two sets without taking any extra breaks, was that we were in tune with the musicians to such a degree that on several occasions our missteps in the dance corresponded with the slip ups of the musicians playing music. It was, if it would have happened once, okay, maybe it was a chance, but this happened two or three times. And it was mind blowing to experience that. Synchronicity, it wasn't even synchronicity, it was that we were one with the musicians. It felt like our dancing couple was part of the band.
It's wonderful the kind of things we notice when we dance tango for enough time, right?
That's right.
I think it's one part of tango that helps us develop different parts of ourselves. And I mean, you don't hear everyday people saying, you know what, I was listening to the music and I kind of stepped that way and it kind of fit. You know, I think we are kind of, through tango, we are trained to notice things, to notice other people.
Yeah, what tango does is that it um, it forces you to look inside, but it also forces you to hone your sensitivity to other people, to your partner, especially around you. You definitely start feeling more as a result.
You, do you think this kind of growth happens to everyone?
Um, I don't believe that it happens to everyone. I can say for certain that tango has the capacity to be a body practice. It has the capacity to be a catalyst to change because, and whatever change that you can think of in your mind, tango can help you embody it and become it. So you can sort of imagine that tango can help you take the change from your head and to embody it, to become that change. Um, but if you don't, if you're, for example, not focused on personal growth, if you're simply wanting to dance and have fun, I believe that your psychology will improve a little bit while you're learning to dance, but you're not going to reach any next levels, so to speak. So I believe that tango can be a catalyst, but it doesn't, in and of itself, it's not going to take you anywhere. I really think that you have to set intentions and you have to um, use it in order to grow.
Absolutely. I would definitely want to come back to the intentions part a little bit
Mhm.
later. Uh, you probably know I'm a big fan of setting intentions, and sometimes when I post about it, people are commenting underneath, you know, Dimitri's tango doesn't have to be all those things. We don't need all those things. We can dance tango without. And sometimes I just think maybe you can, but I can't. I need those things. I want those things. They're part of who I am and how I experience life. So I would definitely go back to that. But what I really like when I listen to you talking about bliss is, first of all, how your face lights up. But secondly, you describe bliss, tango bliss, as a very real, attainable state. Okay, so I would like to ask you, how would you describe tango bliss to someone who has never danced tango, and maybe to someone who has danced tango but haven't experienced that?
Bliss is kind of it's a state where the essence of bliss, I believe, is that of merging, that of wholeness, and that of merging. Now, what is being merged? Um, Sometimes it's difficult to tell where your body begins and the body of your dance partner starts. Sometimes it's difficult to tell, you know, where is your couple and where is the music and what's primary. So you're starting to merge with the music itself. And after a while, you're starting to merge with um, all the other dancing couples around you. You start to feel that flow and the ronda being one sort of dancing mass. Then you start to merge with everything, the room, the the planet, and you can get as esoteric as you want from there because there's no end to this merging. So after a while, um, you can you can go as deep as into that as you want. And tango bliss, I believe, is a kind of a trance. It's altered perception of reality where time seems to slow down and then stop, and then it ceases to exist entirely. And and everything is still there. You're still human. There's still people around you, but your perception of it all is definitely changed, and the happiness hormones that your bodies produce definitely helps with this trance.
Nice. I remember when I was writing my second book, I was thinking what to put on the cover. And you call it merging. I went with osmosis.
Yes.
And I think it's kind of similar in that aspect, because this is what we try to kind of do, is like you take two individual creatures, or monsters, I like to call them, and you just put them together, and then they start taking qualities from each other, and name it merge, name it osmosis, but this kind of melting between the two, I think it's a beautiful description of what bliss feels like in tango. What do you think is the biggest obstacle most dancers face when they want to reach this state?
I believe the biggest obstacle is going to be your psychology. And some people are um, less prone to this and some more. But I believe that, like I mentioned earlier, some people don't believe that it's possible. And you can be sure that if somebody doesn't believe that it's possible, you can be sure that they're never going to experience it. So, um, but that's just one. There are many other obstacles, and most of this trouble with psychology is that it's very complicated and it's not very straightforward to even know what it is that I need to in order to improve. So there are different modalities to healing. And what I wholeheartedly recommend everyone do is sort of um, look for your blind spots when it comes to your psychology, work on your healing. Because I believe that an unhealed person is it's very unlikely that an unhealed person is going to experience bliss. And I believe that a way to this state of euphoria that we're after lies through healing. And in the book, I sort of touch on several aspects of psychology because this is an area of in order to sort of show people that, hey, these are some of the potential troubles that almost everyone has. Like, almost everyone on the planet is traumatized to one degree or another. So, understanding that and not being afraid of looking inward is a good starting point, I believe, to healing. And healing is definitely an important step here.
Well, healing is, I mean, yeah, healing is very often related to somatic experiences, right? There are so many wonderful people out there that I'm sure you're familiar, like Peter Levine and all the people working with the body to release trauma.
Yeah,
And I think in a way, Tango does that for us when we set our minds straight.
exactly.
But this is just my perception there. Um, my uneducated opinion, I would put it this way. Uh, but one thing that I kind of believe is that whenever we want to work with our bodies, whenever we want to release traumas, our body stores those emotions, and we need to work with our body in order to release them. And one important factor for that is our own breath. And this is what I like because when I was reading your book, you mentioned that tango bliss is impossible if our breath is on autopilot. And I would like to ask you if you can to expand a little bit on that. So to make it a little bit more practical, how can dancers use their breath to reconnect with a partner when things maybe feel a little bit off in the embrace?
Mhm. So yeah, um, for the reasons we touched on in the previous question, many people tend to breathe in a shallow way. And that is, it can create various problems, but the results are that your blood is not rich with oxygen and that it triggers all kinds of weird effects in our and it causes stress and it can really affect our state in a negative way. So what I um, what I recommend, aside from different kinds of rituals and things you can do, what I recommend to people is that you can, in any given situation, if the situation is challenging, troubling, or something that is prompting you to react, in order to response, what I recommend that you do is you take a long inhale and exhale. And just that longer inhale and exhale has the potential to reset. It's like a reset button that helps your health, your state, your psychology in the moment. You take control of your volition and you can respond instead of reacting. So, this is something that outside of tango, while dancing, it doesn't matter because it's so easy, it's so accessible that anyone can do it at any point. And I really believe that this is something that can help in many situations. It can help many people.
I was listening recently to an audiobook that was written by a lawyer who was helping people communicate. And he said that whenever you want to answer, you have the judge in front of you and they're asking you all the hard questions. And he says, what is your first word every time somebody asks you? And the answer is, your first word is your breath. So you answer first with your breath, and that gives you time for everything else. So
Yeah, exactly.
I really like this approach. And I think that
Yeah, it's a very good perspective too, because you if you start with that, if you start with your breath, you know, for example, I recommend starting with your breath when you first embrace your partner getting ready to dance. Like that can be something that can be very similar to what you're saying. When you start with the breath, you prime yourself already to breathe well for the entire conversation, the entire tanda, the entire, whatever it is that you're doing. So there's a lot to be said for that. And yes, definitely starting with the breath is the way to go.
somehow it kind of reminds you to breathe as well. I mean, I've caught myself quite sometimes when I start dancing with someone and we're dancing for a while, but for any reason I feel stressed. I just don't remember when was the last time I actually took a breath in. I was
Right.
like, I'm holding my breath for like 5 steps or something.
Yeah.
So it kind of really helped. Well, this is one of the leaders' problems. But by the way, on that topic about the leaders' problems, you mentioned in the book that followers have easier access to bliss than leaders. And I would like you really to expand on that. And if you can also help the leaders, if we indeed have this imbalance, if you can tell the leaders what do you think can help them and what they can learn from the followers' mindset.
Yes, so we use attention differently in tango between the roles, and the leaders used more of focused attention. This is what one author referred to as slow thinking, because you need to take in several different points of input, do the calculations, and then your output is your movement, which leads in the dance. So the leaders employ this sort of slow thinking, focused attention, and their attention is turned inward where they're feeling the music, and you are doing this computation continuously. You're taking in um, the music, the follower you're dancing with, and their level. You're taking in space around you to know where you can move and where you cannot. You're taking in your own body position, and then you're doing quite a lot of computation continuously. So this the leader mode more is that resembles this sort of slow thinking in the classical sense. And then the followers employ a slightly different mode of thinking, and that is more attention that is spread around the periphery and is tuned more outward because their goal is to be reflective and agree that whatever the leader proposes, they move in a reflective way. And this kind of thinking is what's called fast thinking. And this is where there's only two inputs. There's only the music and the leader. And this is what allows the follower to move in this reflective way. So I believe that because of this, bliss is more readily accessible to, but I believe that the leaders can still access it and that it's not that far away for leaders. So to answer the second part of your question, I would say that I would recommend for leaders to look for a companion body practice that encourages them to look inward. For example, things like yoga, meditation, and qigong can really help you um, hone this kind of state, this this mode that followers use continuously. That leaders can improve this with using some kind of additional mindfulness practice, body practice, and I think that it's not it's not as much um, it's not as much a practice as I would say that it's more of what you're used to because so many people are constantly in their heads. I find myself being in my head too often most of the time. And, I really think that a way to center and to balance would be to come back to the heart because that is where our our volition comes in our heads. I believe that our heart is the executive uh, function or
Hmm. Dancing through your heart. What do
yeah.
you mean?
Well, it's exactly this. It's being centered in the heart versus in your head. So, um, to give you an analogy, many people think of their brain as this sort of network operating center, right? Like, this is where all the inputs are coming in, all the outputs are going out. This is where all the work is doing, and this is great. But if you take this analogy further, and if you examine, you know, the a typical company's network operations center, you're not going to find any executives there. The executives, the board, are in an entirely different place. And this translates very well to this analogy between the head and the heart, because if you look at the recent science and what it's saying about the heart, you'll see that it has so many neurons and that it is basically almost like a brain, and that the heart's electromagnetic uh, power, the energy that it radiates, far surpasses that of our brain. So I really believe that when we are centered in the heart, when we take command coming from our heart, I really believe that that is when our dance becomes our authentic, our authentic self-expression, and that is when we truly dance.
I love that, and I think that that resonates with many people out there, especially people like me that many times, I think the last maybe a year or two, I'm either getting worse at it or I'm noticing it more, one of the two. But I do realize that I'm staying too much inside my head while dancing and, understanding, okay, what is the geometry, where I should step, how do I create the push, how we move around. And then sometimes the dance finishes and like the embrace feels nice. We are calm, we're connected, we are everything. But I feel like I missed like 90% of what I used to have. But again, I'm not certain if I'm getting worse or if I'm just noticing it more. It's one of the two. Um, I want to ask you something a little bit in that direction because in the book you mention that you assign tasks to the subconscious mind. All right.
Mhm.
I would like to understand a bit better what that means, and if you could share also maybe a personal example that people can relate to, and maybe they can even use it. That how this assigning tasks to the subconscious mind helped you.
Yeah. Um, this is um, this is something that you can do paired with a checklist practice. For example, for me, this checklist was a list of things that I was working on when I was just starting to learn. I had several bad habits that I needed to change, and to help me deal with all of them and to help, I use this checklist idea, which is basically a list of things that you want to change. And what you do is you create a list of these things. Sometimes it can be just two or three things, other times it can be more. But you state what you want in a positive statement, meaning you don't put things like, I don't want to have tension in my arm and I don't want to push with my head. Instead, you say, my arm is soft and engaged, and my neck is soft. So you, in a positive way, and you put all of these things that you're working on onto your checklist in such a way that you can run through this checklist in a mental scan in your mind when you're embracing your partner, whether at a practica or a milonga. You can create this checklist in such a way you can order it so that you can go on. So it can be, ears up, my eyes forward, my neck is soft, my chest is soft, my center of gravity down, and engaged feet. And this is just an example. And everyone is going to have their own checklist, but this is a way to give your subconscious mind the tasks and leave it alone, let it be. And what your subconscious mind can do from that point on is that it can start incorporating these things into your dance. And it can be quite useful because our subconscious mind is always doing something. So we might as well give it something useful to do.
It's what they say that energy goes where intention is focused on or attention.
Exactly.
Um, yeah, that's a very good one. I don't have a list. I will definitely make a list after this one. I would love to, yeah, I would like to test that out.
And definitely put breath on it.
Definitely put breath. Wonderful. Well, you mentioned something a little bit earlier at the beginning where you said that For most tango dancers, I mean, we experience a great tanda and then we don't for like a few milongas, and then maybe we have another great tanda. So it kind of comes and goes. And sometimes we feel, you have this night where you go and dance and you're like, everything's working perfectly. And then you have another night that everything goes wrong and you have no clue why, which sometimes makes it even more frustrating because you cannot really point the finger and be like, okay, this is not working because of that reason or that reason. It's just that something seems off, right?
Mhm.
And I know many dancers, they struggle with this kind of inconsistency. Sometimes the connection, it feels magical. Sometimes it's just flat. What do you suggest they pay attention to in those moments?
Well, one thing I would say that it's most likely going to be your breath is going to help in probably 60% of the cases. But it's usually more complicated than that. And it's usually, for different people and at different points in time, those obstacles can be different things. And so I would I would recommend the entire book because that's where I draw attention to these possible blind spots that people may need to work on. And what they find useful, taking what you think is pertinent to your specific case, your tango and your psychology, and you can leave the rest like a buffet. So I would I would definitely recommend sort of looking towards looking in the direction of psychology and healing.
Right? This is one of the things that I liked about your book is that it feels like a toolbox, you know? And I start reading something, so I'm like, no, I don't want to do that. And then I read it and I was like, yes, that's what I want to do. Because I think different things resonate with different people. And I think a good book gives enough tools so that people can choose the ones that they work for them or that they believe will work for them, which most of the times is the same thing. Because as you said, if you
Exactly.
don't believe it, it will not work.
Exactly. And that's why I don't just give the philosophy and the concepts and the abstractions. I provide specific exercises that people can do tonight when they go to a practica. They can do tonight with their partner and try it for themselves and see what's working and see how to fix that thing and see if it's going to help them finally lose that tension in the arm. So, practical exercises is definitely a big part of this work.
Yes, and I really like this idea of something that people can apply directly tonight because
Exactly.
a lot of times when we read something, we don't really appreciate the full power of that because some things they feel so simple and you're like, nah, I mean, it will not make a big change. But once you start going down that path and you're like, you know what? No, I'm going to try that tonight. I'm going to start with a breath. Whatever I do in the milonga, whatever I do in the practica, I'm going to start with a breath. Um, and then you start seeing everything slowly transforming. And it's like, it was one thing. How could it have so much power? And I think this is what is missing from most people those days. The desire to take those small actions consistently so that they can see the results. And talking about consistency, one thing that I like in the book is the recommendation of rituals, things that people can do, before each milonga, for example, that can maybe change their experience. And I would like to ask you about that. Would you have a ritual that maybe you really like to do before every milonga?
Um, I do have one, and it might be helpful, even though it's not directly related to our psychology. I really believe that people can find it useful. So, something that I have is another checklist. um, long time ago, I know that it was all about checklists. Um, and this is a checklist um, for packing everything I need to take with me to the Milonga to make sure that I don't forget it. And it's been the same for a long time. And I even uh, made it kind of rhyme so that it's easier to keep in my mind. And this is something that I really think that people can benefit from to make sure that you.
All right. It kind of gives you a sense of safety, right? It's like,
Yeah,
okay, we are
that's right.
starting. This is the
Ex
process.
exactly, exactly. Uh you're ready. So this already starts to get you into the mood, knowing that you have everything with you.
I think we discussed a lot about what a person can do for, themselves, for the preparation, their breathing, um, which is an approach I really like because I think whenever you have a problem, if you start looking of how other people should change, in order for your problems to be solved, usually you're going to have a very hard life. If you start asking, what can
Yeah.
I change? Your life usually becomes a lot easier because it's in your hand. But I would like to ask a little bit about what others can do. And my question is this: for teachers or organizers that might be listening to this episode, how can they create spaces that support this kind of mindful, bliss-oriented dancing that you're describing?
Yeah. The first thing immediately comes to mind is please make sure that people can breathe fresh air. Because sometimes I look at old videos from, back in the time, and they used to smoke right by the dance floor, and oh, I can't watch it. I'm very sensitive to different kinds of smells, and perfume is another example. Like sometimes at a couple of instances in my experience, I had to end the tanda early because I could not um, breathe, like I was having an allergic reaction to a perfume. And, you know, you kind of to your partners, you have to think about um, the people that you're going to be dancing with. And you kind of have to plan accordingly. Um, I would suggest for people to definitely pay attention to things like hygiene and making sure that there are no strong smells that your partner might be allergic to. It does happen. But also, for example, things like airing out the venue and making sure that clean and fresh, to make sure that the air is of comfortable temperature. All of these things create the atmosphere. That is the literal definition. So I would really, I would really encourage organizers to pay attention to the air and to making sure that, people are not smoking right by the entrance. Things like that have a big impact, I believe.
You remind me, I have a friend. He used to be like the head of a union of workers here in Portugal.
Mhm.
And one time we met in the festival, no, in a marathon, and it was so warm, how it is, like no air conditioned, like 200 people like dancing around, warming the whole place. And he just comes to me. He's like if my union was seeing that, they would have closed the whole space down. They would just close that. And we're laughing a lot. But I think, yeah, in the tango world, we are quite used to dance in places that they might be, without lots of oxygen, very warm. And in some cases, we even forget how good it feels when the situation is not like this.
Right.
But yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Can I ask you where people can find your book?
So Bliss, um, the practical guide to Tango Euphoria, is available on Amazon, and it's available both as an ebook and as a paperback printed copy.
Wonderful. One thing for people who are not so used in using Amazon, and you need to know, is that even if you don't have an Amazon in your country, for example, Germany has its own Amazon, Spain has its own Amazon, but there are some countries that they don't have an Amazon in their country. Amazon ships worldwide. Okay, so the only thing you need to do is to basically look for an Amazon store that's relatively close to your country, or simply Google like which Amazon delivers to my country, and then you will be able to see it. Sometimes you also need to know that Amazon stores that might be closer to your country might not deliver there, and there might be other Amazon stores that they deliver. For example, Germany has a much larger network to deliver in more countries than other Amazon stores that might be closer to your country. Okay, um, that's for the yeah for the people who are not so used in using Amazon. Alexei, before we close, any closing thoughts before you say goodbye?
I would really, I would want to say thank you to everyone who contributed in one way or another, to everyone who taught me all of these wonderful things, um, to everyone that I've danced with over the years. I really appreciate each and every embrace, each and every kind word, and way that all of these wonderful people helped to create this book. This is something that I hope will help thousands and tens of thousands of people to dance more, to dance better, and to truly enjoy their tango to the fullest. So thank you from the bottom of my heart to everyone who helped. I very much appreciate it.
That's
And thank you,
wonderful.
Dimitris, for hosting me and for helping me spread the word, because it is thanks to you that so many people buy it and benefit from it.
Thanks, man. And thank you for taking the energy and the time to write this book. Trust me, I know how much it takes out of us. Some things they really flow, but some other things we need to sit down and think and meditate and discuss with other people and send them out and get feedback and fix them. And it's really not easy to put something out there because everything we can possibly create is incomplete and potentially wrong in so many ways.
Yeah.
So the simple act of courage of putting something out there, it's a big thing, bigger than most people realize. And I do believe that your book will have a very significant impact. So thank you for writing it. And that was the end of the interview. I hope you all enjoy it. Please, if you haven't registered to the Curious Tanguero newsletter, please do go to thecurioustanguero.com and you're going to receive one email every week with tango tips, tango philosophy, tango news, tango events, and the occasional tango dad jokes. Um, Most people don't like the jokes. I do. I have a terrible sense of humor and I enjoy it. So, um, If you are not subscribed to the Curious Tanguero podcast, please look around. There must be a button somewhere where you can say, hey, please let me know when the next podcast episodes are out. If you enjoy it, please also share it with your friends. And I wish you a wonderful Tango life. Always remember, hug and let go. The first will bring you happiness, the second, peace. both on and off the dance floor. We talk about quite a few things in this podcast. We discuss the idea of tango bliss, what it feels like, whether it's accessible to everyone, and what often stands in the way of reaching it. Aleksey also shared his own story of how tango helped him find light during the darkest moments of the war in Ukraine, and we explore everything from breath and presence to leading and following, and the subtle art of dancing through the heart. Whether you've been dancing tango for years or are just beginning to explore it, this conversation will invite you to look at the dance and yourself in a whole new way. So let's start.